When betrayal comes from outside, you prepare for war, but when it comes from inside the palace, from the hands that once saluted you, it is poison far deadlier than any bullet. My people of Burkina Faso, my fellow Africans, my brothers and sisters in the fight for true liberation, today I do not stand before you to complain. I do not speak to gain sympathy. I speak because truth must roar louder than the lies that echo in the halls of corrupted power. In the opening of the speech, Ibrahim Traoré immediately seizes attention with a direct and startling declaration. He confirms that he was poisoned. This revelation is not delivered with fear or weakness, but with fierce determination and clarity. By acknowledging the assassination attempt, he breaks the silence surrounding rumors that had likely been circulating among the public, military, and international observers. Rather than letting others control the narrative, Traoré takes ownership of it, transforming a moment of vulnerability into a weapon of resistance. His words carry weight because they come from a leader known for his revolutionary stance and fearless opposition to neo-colonial forces. By stating, "Yes, I was poisoned, and no, I will not die silently," Traoré makes it clear that this act of violence will not intimidate or break him. The poisoning becomes more than a personal attack. It becomes a symbol of the desperate. Measures being taken by those who fear the rising wave of African independence, dignity, and unity. It underscores the idea that real change is underway, and that those clinging to the old systems of exploitation will resort to extreme tactics to stop it. Traoré does not simply reveal the attempt on his life. He uses it as a mirror to expose deeper truths. He implicitly raises questions about who was behind the attack and what forces, both foreign and domestic, stand to lose from his vision for a liberated Burkina Faso. His survival becomes a message in itself that attempts to silence revolutionary leaders only strengthen the cause they represent. Instead of deterring him, the poisoning seems to have solidified his resolve and reignited the revolutionary flame in his rhetoric. This moment also connects Traoré with a long lineage of African leaders who faced violence for daring to stand against colonial and imperial power structures. The echo of Thomas Sankara is strong here, not only in tone, but in principle. It positions Traoré not as a victim, but as a warrior whose suffering is part of the sacrifice for national and continental freedom. In short, the confirmation of his poisoning is not just an announcement, it is a battle cry. It turns a moment of personal danger into a collective warning and a renewed call for vigilance, unity, and resistance among the people. The most disturbing revelation in Ibrahim Traoré's speech is not just that he was poisoned, but that the betrayal came from within the palace, from someone close, someone trusted. This internal betrayal adds a painful and emotional layer to the already serious situation. In any revolution, the expectation is to face enemies from the outside, foreign powers, opposition groups, or external agents. But when the attack comes from within the inner circle, it cuts deeper. It signifies that the threat is not just external, it is embedded within the very structure that is supposed to protect the vision of national liberation. Traoré expresses shock and disappointment that someone who once shared bread, ideas, and the dream of a free Africa would choose to turn against him. This is not just a political betrayal, it is personal. It is a breach of trust that shakes the foundation of solidarity. His tone implies not just anger but sorrow, a deep awareness that the revolution is vulnerable not only to foreign influence, but to internal ambition, jealousy, and corruption. The betrayal within the palace raises critical questions about loyalty and integrity among those in power. Who is truly committed to the mission of reclaiming sovereignty for Burkina Faso, and who is merely occupying a position of influence while secretly serving other interests? The poisoning becomes a metaphor for the slow, hidden dangers that can infect even the most righteous causes from within. It is a warning that the enemy does not always wear a foreign flag. Sometimes it wears a familiar uniform. This moment serves as a stark reminder of the complexity of leadership during a revolutionary era. While Traoré has positioned himself as a voice of the people, surrounded by those claiming to support the cause, he is not immune to internal sabotage. The palace, once seen as a place of strategy, trust, and protection, is revealed to also be a place of danger. By exposing this internal betrayal publicly, Traoré is not only addressing the people with transparency, but also sending a message. To those who may be plotting in the shadows, their actions will not go unnoticed, and their cowardice will not be hidden. It is a call to vigilance, not just against colonial powers or economic manipulation, but against the silent poison of treachery hiding behind friendly smiles and patriotic words. In his speech, Ibrahim Traoré shifts the focus from the personal act of poisoning to a broader political question: who benefits from his silence or removal? This point is crucial because it reframes the attack not just as an isolated betrayal, but as part of a larger strategic effort to disrupt a revolutionary movement. Traoré challenges the people to think critically. If the attempt on his life does not serve the interests of the ordinary Burkina citizen, then who does it serve? He answers this question clearly and powerfully. It is not the farmers struggling to feed their families, not the students seeking knowledge and truth, not the workers building the country from the ground up. The real beneficiaries are those who have historically profited from Africa's weakness, the foreign powers that exploit natural resources, the local elites who serve foreign agendas, and the corrupt systems that resist any shift towards sovereignty and justice. Traoré exposes the network of interest that aligns against a free and independent Burkina Faso, and by extension, against any leader who dares to challenge that system. By framing the poisoning as an act that aligns with colonial and imperial interests, Traoré is drawing a clear line between the people and the enemy. He wants the public to understand that this was not simply an act of personal hatred or ambition. It was a calculated move by those who fear the rise of a new political order, one that rejects foreign dominance, economic servitude, and political manipulation. His survival threatens the status quo, and so efforts to eliminate him are not random, but deliberate. This narrative strengthens the idea that the struggle is bigger than one man. Traoré is merely a symbol of a wider awakening. If he is attacked, it is not because of personal power, but because he represents the growing strength of a movement committed to African dignity, unity, and self-reliance. By pointing out who gains from his potential fall, Traoré is teaching the people to follow the money, follow the fear, and identify the true enemies of progress. He turns suspicion into political education. The question of who benefits is not just rhetorical. It's a tool for the people to stay alert, to not be manipulated by propaganda, and to recognize that the revolution must be defended not only with weapons, but with wisdom. Ibrahim Traoré's response to the attempt on his life is marked not by fear or retreat, but by strength, resilience, and defiance. Rather than portraying himself as a victim, he presents himself as a soldier who remains unshaken despite the threat. His declaration that he is still here, still standing, is not just a personal affirmation. It is a rallying cry to the people that the revolution cannot be stopped by cowardly methods such as poisoning. This powerful stance transforms what could have been a moment of defeat into one of empowerment and resistance. Through his words, Traoré reinforces the idea that true leaders are not made in comfort, but in struggle. His survival becomes more than a physical fact. It becomes a symbol of the endurance of revolutionary ideals in the face of violence. Poison, in this context, is not only a literal act of aggression, but a metaphor for the many ways those in power attempt to corrupt, weaken, or eliminate movements that threaten their control. Traoré's rejection of fear sends a clear message. He will not yield, and the revolution will not falter. This moment also reflects his belief that personal suffering is part of the greater cost of freedom. He does not seek pity for the attack on his life. Instead, he uses it to remind the people that every true revolution demands sacrifice. In standing firm, he mirrors the strength of the very people he represents, the poor, the oppressed, the dreamers of a better Africa, who face daily struggles yet refuse to give up. His resilience also serves to inspire. By showing that even when betrayed, even when nearly killed, he will not abandon his mission, Traoré strengthens the collective resolve. His defiance becomes contagious, a model for how the people themselves must respond to attacks, by holding their ground, by continuing to believe in the cause, and by refusing to be intimidated by those who fear change. This act of standing tall in the face of death reaffirms his identity as a revolutionary, not a politician seeking power. It reminds the nation that leadership is about conviction, and that even in darkness, a true leader becomes a torchbearer. Traoré's resilience is not just his. It belongs to the people, to the revolution, and to the future of a free Burkina Faso. In his speech, Ibrahim Traoré presents the act of poisoning not as a random or isolated incident, but as a sign of desperation, a last resort used by those clinging to a collapsing system. This interpretation reframes the betrayal as part of a larger historical and political pattern. When systems built on exploitation, injustice, and foreign control begin to lose their grip, they often resort to underhanded and cowardly methods. Poisoning, in this case, becomes symbolic of a system that no longer has the confidence to confront its opponents openly. Instead, it hides in the shadows, using treachery because it fears the light of truth and the power of a people rising. Traoré highlights that betrayal is not strength, it is fear. It is the reaction of those who cannot defeat ideas through debate, vision, or progress. The dying system he refers to is one built over decades, where puppet governments served external powers, and leaders who resisted were silenced through coups, exile, or assassination. By placing his poisoning within this context, Traoré exposes the continuity of a playbook that has been used across Africa to stop liberation movements. This is not a new tactic, it is the final tool of a structure that knows its time is ending. This insight transforms the personal attack into a political turning point. If the old order is resorting to poison, it means that it has lost the battle for legitimacy. It can no longer inspire, control, or persuade the people. All it can do now is attempt to eliminate the individuals who represent the winds of change. But even that is failing, because Traoré stands tall, stronger than ever, exposing their weakness to the world. The deeper message he delivers is that betrayal is often a sign that the revolution is succeeding. The system is panicking, it is unraveling, and in that moment of desperation, it shows its true face, not one of strength, but of decay. This is a warning to the people. Remain vigilant, because the enemy is cornered and dangerous. But it is also a message of hope. If the revolution were not powerful, they would not attack. If the people's voice were not rising, they would not fear it. The poison only proves that the system is dying, and something new is being born. As Ibrahim Traoré concludes his speech, he moves beyond the personal and political implications of the poisoning to focus on the collective response of the people. He does not allow the moment to be defined by fear or suspicion. Instead, he transforms it into a call for unity, vigilance, and continued resistance. The underlying message is clear. While betrayal may come from within and enemies may lurk in unexpected places, the strength of the revolution lies in the hands of the people who refuse to be divided or discouraged. Traoré calls on the nation to stay alert, not just to external threats, but to internal decay. He reminds the people that revolutions are not sustained by one leader alone, but by the unbreakable bond between those who believe in justice and freedom. The poison meant for him was, in truth, meant to destabilize a much larger dream. The dream of a BurkinaFaso that stands free from foreign control, corruption, and the manipulation of elites. His survival is not presented as an individual victory, but as a challenge to the entire population to remain steadfast and unified. By focusing on collective resistance, Traoré places the future of the revolution in the hands of ordinary citizens, farmers, soldiers, youth, and elders. He empowers them with the idea that their awareness, their choices, and their solidarity are the true defenses against both foreign oppression and domestic betrayal. He warns that the fight ahead may be darker and more complex than before, but it's also more crucial than ever. Now is not the time to fall into fear or paranoia. Now is the time to rise even stronger. This call to unity is also a reminder that the revolution is not just political, it is spiritual, moral, and deeply rooted in the people's will. Traoré appeals to a sense of shared destiny and African pride. He invokes the legacy of past leaders and movements that refused to bow in the face of colonialism, and reminds his listeners that they are part of something much greater than the present crisis. The attack on him becomes an attack on every citizen who dreams of freedom, and so, with calm but fiery conviction, he urges the people to protect that dream, to watch carefully, to stand together, and to never, ever give up. Long live Burkina Faso. Long live African dignity. The revolution lives on.